with. Mr. McClintock.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Phillips, on the tour of Friant Dam you gave us today, you said that we could face major flooding because Millerton Lake cannot contain the runoff and may not be able to release it fast enough. If Temperance Flat had been built, would you have the same concern?
I would not have the same concern, Congressman. We have 3 million acre-feet of snowpack above Millerton Lake right now, and it has about 300,000 acre-feet of capacity. So there's no way to correctly do the math on that when it comes off.
So too late for Temperance Flat.
Too late this year.
To prevent what you see
the million acre-feet that Temperance Flat would have been able to provide, because we're going to have to release about 600,000 to 2 million acre-feet, somewhere in that range. So
nobody made mention of the fact that twice in the decade we've seen historic droughts followed by years of record rainfall. During the droughts, our reservoirs were drawn down perilously low. 500,000 acres of farmland was desiccated. Thousands of farm workers lost their job. This year, we've experienced atmospheric rivers that have caused massive damage from flooding. The floodgates on those same dams are now wide open. They're pouring millions of acre-feet of water into the ocean because we've got no place to store the excess. Mr. Sutton, what do you suppose nature is trying to tell us?
There are some solutions that I think if we can get out of our own way, it takes federal, state, local partnership, and I think a lot of folks have stepped up, but some folks have continued to try and create impediments. We need to build dams.
The last generation was able to do that effortlessly. We're still living from the gifts of the founders, they say. In 1959, the legislature passed the Burns-Porter Act. It included a water bond of $1.75 billion. Now, you do the inflation adjustment, that's about $17 billion in today's money. Now, with that $17 billion in today's money, we built 10 storage dams, 11 ancillary dams that store 7 million acre-feet of water, and, by the way, also generate 3,000 megawatts of the cleanest and cheapest electricity on the planet. And with what was left over, we built the California Aqueduct. Now, it's kind of interesting. In the last, since 2000, voters have approved 6 water bond measures, $27 billion, including $17 billion of that we've already spent. So we've spent about the same as we did in the entire Burns-Porter Act, all promising to enhance California's water supply. So I wonder, Mr. Sutton, can you tell me what our generation has gotten with $17 billion of water bond spending?
We haven't gotten 7 million acre-feet of new storage. We've gotten promises, and we're working to get across the finish line. Trying to overcome challenges, I'll reference...
So our generation's dropped the ball. Why is that? What is keeping us from doing what the last generation accomplished so effortlessly?
Regulatory hurdles.
So we've done it to ourselves. We're not suffering because of acts of God. We're suffering because of acts of government. Is that a fair statement?
It's a very fair statement, Congressman. The Sites Reservoir Project has been in the book since the 1950s.
Mr. Bordeaux, would it be helpful to streamline the process for new dam construction, put the Bureau of Reclamation in charge of all federal permitting agencies for an application, require the permitting process to run concurrently and not consecutively, and put a 2-year time limit on that process?
It would be tremendously helpful. It's unbelievable to me that we're able to build sports stadiums in record time. And though I like sports, but I don't think they help society the same way water infrastructure would.
Mr. Chairman, by the way, my H.R. 186 would do exactly that. It passed the House when we last held the majority. I would hope that we'll get consideration of that measure before the summer. Mr. DeGroot, we keep hearing about agricultural water. I wonder, is there really such a thing? I understand that a cheeseburger, for example, requires about 700 gallons of water to grow the stuff in that cheeseburger. A pair of jeans, about 1,500 gallons of water. So isn't this entire discussion one between abundance and scarcity, or prosperity and poverty for our children?
The amount of water that is claimed to even grow one almond I believe is over 60 or 80 gallons, I've heard.
So that's water that we use in our daily lives. That's the water that's necessary to produce the prosperity that we enjoyed and once took for granted in what was once a golden state.
Yes,
We can't do that anymore because when something is scarce, it becomes expensive. When it's plentiful, it's cheap. We are making water more and more scarce, therefore more and more expensive, and we're thus sabotaging the very prosperity that once brought our forebearers to this state looking for a better future. Is that an adequate summary of what's taken place with these environmental laws?
The environmental laws are keeping, just one example, is our forestry. We are not taking care of our forestry. We're letting the trees get overrun. If we cut out half the trees,
that's a subject for a different day and a different subcommittee.
well, it kind of plays in
But you're
line,
right.
right? So water's staying up in those mountains, and for our valley here, a lot of our water comes through snowmelt, which comes here. Now, if those trees are taking that water up and evaporating it, that's less water that we're getting in this direction again. So just another environmental thing. That's not our choice. That's what's happened. The biggest one still is if we took these gentlemen here to my right and maybe asked if they could live off the schmelt, maybe let them eat schmelt and drink water only the rest of their lives, maybe they would look at the rest of their food that we are growing for them a little differently.
Thank you, Mr. McClintock.